Happy Monday, everybody. Hope you had a good weekend so far. Uh, Not so far, just had a good weekend in general and are having a good Monday so far. I had a pretty uneventful weekend. In fact, thankfully, I got to rest. The last couple weekends, I've just been just as busy as during the week when I'm working, but I started feeling like I was getting sick, maybe a lot of sinus pressure, and it's constant until the weather settles down and decides to stay warm or cold and not jumping around constantly. That always makes me sick. So I just spent most of the day laying around and watching Jurassic Park, all of the old ones, of course, and the new ones. So I don't know why. I just felt like rewatching them. I love Jurassic Park. I don't know about anybody else, but I absolutely love those movies for sure. So it's always fun to rewatch them. I try to find stuff to watch on Netflix, but it's just like you have so many choices, but none of them are really that good unless you're gonna watch something from that's really old that you watched when you were younger that you really like. But all of this new junk they've got on there, it's just like none of it grabs my attention. And the things that do, the new seasons haven't started yet. So, yeah, I just have to wait for those. Anyway, no reason to gripe about the fact that I had nothing to watch on Netflix. Let's do our daily promise. Today it says, I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. John 6:51. Jesus speaks of himself as the living bread of life. For those of us who are in Christ, we shall never again experience the spiritual hunger that existed before our conversion. Jesus Christ, the living manna, provides all that we need to live day by day with God. And reading this Bible verse, um, not that it has anything to do with what I'm about to tell you, other than it's just a Bible verse. Anybody who doesn't know who John Doyle is, I recommend you to go check out his YouTube channel, and really, most especially, watch his latest video that he uploaded. It's almost an hour and a half long, and I know some people don't like to sit and watch videos that long, maybe break it up, but it's a very good video. And for I don't know, the easiest way I can explain it is he's going to break down how liberalism, taken to its logical conclusion, always leads to leftist ideology, and how that the leftist ideology and like Satanism overlap. And it's really good. You should just go watch it. I don't explain stuff very well, and I think those that listen to me know that. Okay, so I want to talk about. I got to be very careful about talking about this because I don't want to get this struck down on YouTube. But for those of us who are paying attention, there is a new variant, supposedly, a new variant out. Is it a micron? I don't know how you say that. I know it's part of the Greek alphabet, but I don't know how you say it. However, this was pointed out on Instagram. It had a photo of the Greek alphabet, and it said that the most previous variant was new, and now we have this one. But they skipped a Greek letter. And if you look at the Greek letter, it's XI. And the only reason it makes sense that we would skip that specific letter of the alphabet is because of Xi Jinping. Um, I don't know if that's why they did it. Someone else thinks, Dinesh D'Souza believes that that's why they skipped it. Wouldn't surprise me. So I just thought that was a bit of interesting information at how we bow to China. So this is from Breitbart by Pam Key, and Fauci. said that the U.S. should be prepared to do anything. So I want to just quickly look at what he thinks we should do. So he said on Sunday on ABC's This Week that the U.S. should be prepared to do anything and everything, including lockdowns, to fight the new variant. Anchor George Stephanopoulos asked, should we expect to be seeing more lockdowns again? New lockdowns, more mandates? Fauci said, I don't know, George. It's really too early to say. We just really need to, as I said so often, prepare for the worst. It may not be we'll have to go the route people are saying. We don't know a lot about this variant, so we want to prepare as best we can, but it may turn out this preparation, although important, may not necessarily push us to the next level. People talking about lockdowns, people talking about that. Let's see what the information we're getting in real time tells us. We'll make decisions based on the science and the evidence the way we always do. But you want to be prepared to do anything and everything. That's the reason why we're paying such close attention to this and why we're all over it. Um, it's a very quick story, but just a heads up that if you don't live in a state that allows you to live freely, like Texas, Florida, then you might want to prepare for your life to be interrupted again because I wouldn't put it past them. And speaking on this subject, there is a video, if it's still up on YouTube. I don't know. It was when I watched it, and I watched it on Saturday, I think it was. It might have been Friday. I can't remember. Um, but it's Glenn Beck, and I can't remember the name of it, so I will have to find it. But it was talking a lot about, the uh, all of this that's going on and the origins of it, the players that were heavily involved, which is very interesting. It's called Crimes or Cover Up. So I would recommend you go watch that before it gets taken down off of YouTube. Or if you have Blaze TV, go watch it. But it's 2 hours long. There's a lot of information to take in. I'm not going to talk about it on here because that definitely would make me lose my channel. But what I will do is go back and watch it again, compile all the information into maybe a 30-minute uh, segment where I could release it on Spotify and Anchor so that if you don't feel like sitting down for 2 hours or you just don't have the time, or maybe it's off of YouTube by the time you get to watch it, I'll compile down all the information quickly into 30 minutes so you can just get the basics and tell you where you can go check out all the information because they have all of the research that they've done for almost 2 years, and they can back it all up and you can verify it through what they put on their website. So just wanted to let you know about that. Now, I wanted to talk about the New York Times admitting the appeal of moving to Texas. And the only reason I chose to talk about this is because I live in Texas and I absolutely love it and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I don't think that there really is a better state that you could possibly live in. I don't even think that Florida's better. I have my reasons for that, but I don't. So, an opinion piece at the far left New York Times admits that the appeal of moving to the red state of Texas is no mystery. This is by John Nolte. Quote, I've lived in California nearly all my life, and it's still more likely than not that I will remain here. Reports of a sudden exodus from the state are frequently exaggerated, writes Farhad Manju. Still, there's plenty going wrong: soaring housing costs, devastating property and inequality, and the cascading disasters brought about by change in what was once our big selling point, the climate. He adds, not a month goes by that I don't wonder what I'm doing here. There's got to be somewhere better, right? Yeah, it's called rural MAGA country. It's not, but okay. Manju crunched some numbers, took a look at Texas, specifically the Dallas area, and saw the big mystery. Oh, can I just tell you, Dallas is a horrible place to live. Do not live in Dallas if you come to Texas. Do not move to Dallas. It's no better than Austin. It may not be much better than some places in California. Don't move there. So, as the Golden Gate shuts, the Lone Star beckons. If you're looking for an affordable, economically vibrant city that is less likely to be damaged by climate change than many other American cities, our data shows why Texas is a new land of plenty. For the many hypothetical life scenarios I ran through our quiz, the suburbs around Dallas, places like Plano, McKinney, Garland, Euless, and Allen, came up a lot. Euless is maybe okay, but I would really tell you like White Settlement, some parts of Fort Worth, Saginaw, maybe Blue Mound, Haltom City, Keller, Watauga. Those are actually a lot better places, but to each his own, I guess. It's clear why these are some of the fastest growing areas in the country. They have relatively little crime and are teeming with jobs, housing, highly rated schools, good restaurants, clean air, and racial and political diversity. All at a steep discount compared to the cost of living in America's coastal metropolises. Get this, Texas offers not only jobs and something called lower climate risk, but racial diversity. There are a lot of places in America with jobs and lower climate risk or jobs and racial diversity, but if you want all three, Texas will take care of you best. Diversity is what Texas has over many cities in the Midwest or the West, places like Madison or Colorado Springs or Portland. Nearly all of Texas's recent growth has been in populations of color, and its growth areas are as racially diverse as many places in California. Growth cities in Texas are not just racially diverse, but also politically diverse, if you're into that sort of thing. In Plano, a thriving suburb of Dallas, about 60% of voters are Democrats. In Menlo Park, a thriving suburb south of San Francisco, about 80% are. The difference between living among political allies and living in an echo chamber. Yeah, that's about right. So much of the article is premised on the global warming hoax, which is what this dumb climate risk assessment is all about. Having lived in Southern California for nearly a decade, I can tell you that climate risk means there's a better environmental management in Texas, which means fewer massive fires that snarl traffic and fill the air with smoke. It also means Texas does a better job of building the reservoirs needed to ensure no water shortages. California's climate risks issues are all brought on by extremist environmental policies that one, cause devastating wildfires, two, don't build enough reservoirs to ensure there's enough water during cyclical droughts, and three, don't build power plants. Additionally, California's environmental extremism is why the state has a housing crisis. There's plenty of room in California to build new housing, and the former Golden State has plenty of resources to build with, but Democrats have made a choice not to. In Texas, however, a real estate agent and her family moved in 2017 from El Segundo, a beach city next to Los Angeles International Airport, to Prosper, a landlocked oasis of new housing developments north of Dallas. In El Segundo, I'm probably saying that wrong, the median home list price is $1.3 million. In Prosper, it's less than half that. And in Prosper, the houses are palatial, many of them part of sprawling new developments that brim with amenities unheard of in California. It's like living in a country club, Bailey told me, which sounded like hyperbole until she showed me the 5-acre lagoon, white sand beach in the development where she and her husband purchased a home. Their house is 5,000 square feet. They bought it for about the same price for which they sold a home they owned in Orange County, which was 1,500 square feet. What's more, left wing extremism is why that state has exploding crime problems. California is solely controlled by Democrats and is now a failed state. Period. And please note that the writer of this piece lives in San Francisco, has no intention of moving from San Francisco, even though the rise of the sea levels due to global warming is imminent, right? Right? He says climate issues are stopping him from buying property. But if you were going to be underwater in 10 years, wouldn't you move? And if global warming is real, it's not. Not my words. Why are the same leftists who supposedly believe in global warming, which is a hoax, again, not my words, buying property on the California coast? It's very simple. Out here in MAGA country, our air, water, and streets are clean and safe. We all own guns, but there are no mass shooting crises and no explosion of violent crime. Oh, and people of all colors and backgrounds live together in relative harmony. Rural MAGA country is utopia. Democrat run cities are literally dystopias of pollution, homelessness, hate crimes, violence, lousy schools, left wing fascism, and despair. I can agree with most of that. I absolutely can. And my thing is, forget climate. The crime that's going on in LA, San Francisco, that would be the reason I move. I wouldn't feel safe in LA. And let me tell you why I wouldn't feel safe. Um, I think this was in LA, so let me just double check. Yeah, San Francisco. So, from the Daily Wire, a security guard was murdered while protecting news teams covering smash and grab robbery. Okay? And I bet you didn't hear about this either. So, a security guard was murdered while protecting a news team covering a flash mob theft in San Francisco. Major metropolitan areas, especially San Francisco and other California cities, are battling a wave of smash and grab robberies in which large groups of armed people rob stores and overwhelm employees. On Wednesday, a crew from KRON4, a local San Francisco news channel, covered one such story in which 12 thieves wearing masks and hoods raided a clothing store. As an assailant tried to steal KRON4's camera equipment, Kevin Nishida, an armed guard hired to protect the crew, was shot in the abdomen. He passed away on Saturday morning after receiving treatment at Highland Hospital. The victim is Kevin Nishida. He leaves behind a wife, 2 children, and 3 grandchildren. Nishida worked as an armed guard for Star Protection Agency. Prior to working as a guard, he served as a police officer at the Oakland Housing Authority, Hayward Police, San Jose Police, and the Colma Police Departments. A reward of $32,500 is being offered for information that leads to an arrest. A bystander was also hit by bullet shrapnel. He is presently in stable condition. It's been an extremely violent week, said Oakland police during a press conference. We are asking if you were in the area, have a business, or live nearby to please check your surveillance footage as you may have captured the crime before, during, or after it occurred. Nishida's colleagues mourned his loss on social media. Kevin was genuine, humble, and always did the job with a smile on his face, said reporter Camilla Barco. He was our private security guard that kept our team and numerous other Bay Area reporters safe while out in the field. Kevin will be missed. Words cannot express my heartbreak, commented reporter Maureen Kelly. Kevin was a good man who took his job seriously. He kept me and my colleagues safe. He did not deserve this. He and his family will be forever in my prayers. I worked with Kevin often. He was a really good guy who took his job seriously. His loss is a heavy blow. Reporter Chuck Clifford. In March, another San Francisco reporter, Don Ford of KPIX5, was robbed at gunpoint while filming a segment about car robberies in the city. The car came up here while we were here about to do an interview. 3 guys jumped out. One had a gun and put it in my face and said, "We're taking the camera." My whole thought at the moment was, be calm. Let's not get this guy excited. He's got the gun. I don't. So you take the camera. It's yours, buddy. Former Philadelphia Police Commissioner Charles Ramsey recently warned that the flash mob thefts would soon impact the entire nation. This is something now that I really unfortunately think is going to spread. Right now it's in California, but it will spread. There's no question about it. I don't know what's driving all of this, but it is of concern and it will continue, he added. It is not going to stop anytime soon. Well, he's right about that. It is going to spread. Um, but I know the reason why it's a problem. And I don't know why people can't figure it out. But the reason it's a problem is because Democrats are just allowing it to happen. They're not doing anything to stop it. I mean, if you let people get away with that kind of stuff for so long, and what really sparked it is the riots of 2020. They were able to do whatever they wanted, terrorize people, still kill people, rape people, get away with it. Nothing happened to them, and there is no fear of being punished at all. You try to do that here in Texas, it'll be the last thing you ever do because that kind of stuff, the riots didn't happen here in Texas. They weren't allowed to happen. They tried once and they failed. And it wouldn't happen here. So I can tell you the difference between Texas and California, and it's the leadership. And it's allowing people to commit crimes and telling the real victims to just stand by and let it happen and do absolutely nothing. And then also, we're not going to do anything either. We're not going to arrest them. We're not going to charge them. It would not surprise me to find out that no one is ever found who murdered this security guard and is never charged with the crime. It would not surprise me. I'm just saying. And it's not just that, because then also on Black Friday, a mall had to be evacuated after a shooting and 3 people were shot. And this was in North Carolina, which is really weird to me. But a mall in North Carolina was evacuated on Black Friday after a shooting occurred on the second floor. ABC News reported that 3 people were shot in the South Point Mall in Durham, North Carolina around 3:23 p.m. The shooting victims included a 10-year-old who suffered a bullet ricochet injury that appears to be non-life threatening, police said. The conditions of the other 2 shooting victims are unknown, the outlet reported. Additionally, 3 people suffered non-life threatening injuries while evacuating the mall, police said. The Durham Police Department put out a statement on Twitter regarding the incident. DPD is investigating a shooting incident at the streets at South Point. The mall is being evacuated and will be closed while DPD investigates the incident. Motorists are advised to avoid the area. There is no further threat at the mall. The DPD further reported that one person has been taken into custody, but others involved in the shooting are still on the loose. The police department added that those involved apparently knew each other, so this did not appear to be a random incident. Shoppers recounted people running and screaming after hearing multiple gunshots. There were people being trampled, going up and down the escalator. Alicia Marr, who was shopping with a friend at the mall at the time of the shooting. I'll never come back to this mall again. I know that much, she told the station. The holidays, people should be happy for what they have. You shouldn't be worrying about other people shooting other people. As the Washington Post reported, homicides are on the rise in major cities, and gun violence incidents have risen in Durham this year, from the Post. Homicides rose in 29 major U.S. cities through September compared with the same period last year, according to the Council on Criminal Justice, a Washington based institute. Killings across the country spiked nearly 30% in 2020, the FBI said. According to data from Gun Violence Archive, an independent data collection and research group, Durham has seen 154 gun violence incidents this year as of Friday evening, leaving 39 dead and 140 people injured. Last year, 36 people died and 152 were wounded in the 156 recorded incidents. Reuters reported that across the country in Kennewick, Washington, a security officer shot a man suspected of attempted theft. The shooting occurred when the suspect, confronted as he was leaving the store, pointed a gun at the officer. The officer then drew his own weapon and opened fire at the suspect, who fled the scene but was arrested at a nearby home, according to police. Reuters reported the suspect, taken to an area hospital for treatment of his wounds, was already wanted on 9 outstanding warrants and now faces additional robbery and assault charges, police said in a statement. No one else was injured at the Walmart. Local media reported the shooting stirred panic at the discount store, which was evacuated and closed immediately after the incident but reopened hours later. So, if you really could just go look, even here at the Daily Wire, if you come look at where they list all their articles, you have thieves hit California Apple Store, make off with $20,000 worth of loot in the daytime. Best Buy is worried about San Francisco employees quitting, getting traumatized thanks to frequent thefts. Um, let's see. I mean, there's all kinds. Concerns about increased crime at Los Angeles schools after school board defunds police. Um, New York City woman shot in violent clash as rival tow truck companies fight over her car. I mean, just like what? 50th person in Chicago charged with murder or attempted murder while out on felony bond. Um, Washington man arrested after rescuing daughter accused of killing boyfriend who allegedly sex trafficked her. I ain't talking about the father, but I am talking about the sex trafficking. Another San Francisco supermarket reduces hours because of off the chart shoplifting. Um, oh, Parks and Rec actor charged for vandalizing George Floyd's statue. I wonder who did it. Micah Beals, but I don't really know who he is. So that's just what I'm saying is like crime and violence, it's all gone up, and it's only going to get worse unless people fight back and stop these insane policies that the left is incorporating to allow criminals to just roam the streets free. You don't allow people like that to just roam free and not punish them when they do things wrong. That's how you have a society that falls apart, which, I mean, like, that that's what they're trying to do. I get that, but we can't let it happen. Really quickly, I saw this, so I'm going to pull it up. Criminal charges on the table in Baldwin shooting, New Mexico DA says. So, District Attorney Mary Carmack Altwise told the New York Times that authorities haven't ruled out anything in the case. Everything at this point, including criminal charges, is on the table. Okay? The death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins has also been painted as Alec Baldwin's tragedy. There's no denying Alec Baldwin's role in on-set shooting tragedy. Really, it's not. In fact, Alec Baldwin is likely to be held, at least in part, responsible. If you're capable of memorizing 120 pages of dialogue, you can memorize 4 lines of gun safety, special effects, and firearms expert Steve Wolf tells the Post. If that scene required him to put the gun to his head and pull the trigger, I'm sure he would have taken a look inside the gun. Wouldn't you? Yeah, I think I would have. As an executive producer, you are in a position of control and you can get prosecuted criminally. It's the equivalent of drinking and driving, meaning someone may not have intended to cause great harm, but they do. I agree. Dershowitz wrote in The Hill that there are 2 things that seem clear. Guidelines seem to not have been followed in this case, and the existing guidelines seem insufficient to prevent accidents like this. It's likely, therefore, that the killing of Helena Hutchins could constitute a homicide, that is, a criminal killing. The remaining questions are who might be criminally responsible for the killing and what degree of homicide fits the evidence. Well, I said I think it's criminal negligence. That's what I would go with. Okay, let's talk about Build Back Better. Um, Remember how he said, we're not going to raise taxes on the poor and we're not going to cut taxes for the rich. They need to pay their fair share. Well, IRS audits for working class and tax cuts for the rich. President Joe Biden and Democrats are hoping to squeeze an extra $200 billion in tax revenue out of American taxpayers by mostly targeting working and middle class households with Internal Revenue Service audits. As part of Biden's Build Back Better Act, which was already passed by House Democrats, nearly 600,000 more working and middle class Americans earning $75,000 or less a year would be audited by the IRS, an analysis by Republican lawmakers reveals. Democrats' tax and spending spree will more than double Americans' chances of being audited as it targets lower and middle income earners. So the analysis states the proposal will lead to an additional 1.2 million IRS audits each year, nearly half of which will hit middle-class families making less than $75,000 a year. All this so Democrats can wring an extra $200 billion out of the American people, particularly from middle-class families and small businesses. Biden's plan to supercharge the IRS with $80 billion in mandatory funding and 87,000 new IRS agents will lead to drastically higher audit rates for all Americans at every income level, according to the Congressional Budget Office. Specifically, more than 583,000 of the new IRS audits will target working and middle class Americans earning $75,000 or less. Of those 583,000 new IRS audits, more than 313,000 would target the poorest of Americans who earn $25,000 or less a year. In addition, Biden's Build Back Better Act will mean more than 800,000 more federal tax liens on taxpayer property such as homes and vehicles. Also, because the majority of underreported income to the IRS is from those earnings, $0 to $200,000 a year, the plan will mean more targeting of not only working and middle class Americans, but also small businesses. The Biden plan will mean more audits of the middle class and lower income Americans, 800,000 more federal tax liens per year, and more IRS shakedowns of American families and small businesses. At the same time, Biden's Build Back Better Act would provide a $625 billion tax cut for the wealthiest Americans living in blue states, paid for by working and middle class Americans, as a result of an increase in the state and local tax deduction cap. The plan gives a tax cut to 66% of Americans earning more than $1 million annually, while 78% of Americans earning $500,000 to $1 million will get a tax cut. Meanwhile, just 27% of Americans earning 75,000 to 100,000 would see a tax increase, along with 19% of Americans earning 50,000 to 75,000. So, who's cringing right now that he promised to lower taxes, or not to raise taxes on people like us, but we are the ones that are going to suffer most because they don't care about the little people. They say those things to get your vote because without your vote, they could not win. So they lie to you and you blindly believe them for whatever reason. I mean, I don't know why you can't look at the history and the path of what Democrat leadership has done and what Republican leadership has done in and I'm not saying that there aren't Republicans who have been terrible leaders. There are, but there's some that have done very well and do really good jobs for their citizens. So you tell me, why would you believe somebody when they have a history of continually lying? Everything they say they're going to do, they never do. This is the problem when it came between Trump and Biden. Trump said he was going to do stuff, and he did the things he said he was going to do. And then Biden comes in, and you know the history of Democrats, and you still vote for him instead of the man who just proved that he will do the things that he says he's going to do. I don't get it. I don't get it. And so, because you people that seem to think that Biden is doing a great job, which is less and less and less month after month, probably day over day, he's losing support because he's a horrible leader, a horrible president. There's horrible policies calling every parent a domestic terrorist, calling all white people racist, so all conservatives bigots. It's not a good look. It's really not, and it turns a lot of people off. Even Democrats can be patriotic about their country. So it's not a good look. But because of him being in office, the U.S. economy is failing horribly, and it is in a free fall. And Biden just wants to spend more money, and they just continually keep printing money. And do you know what happens when you print more money? The value of your money goes down. It loses value. One of these days, our money will be absolutely worthless, and it's probably coming quicker than you think. So, the U.S. economy has been coming out of its self imposed recession since Joe Biden took office. All those shutdowns, all those laid off workers, and all the trillions and trillions of dollars in stimulus money should have built up enough demand that, once unleashed, should have caused an eruption of consumption and investment that would shatter economic growth records. While the shutdowns are history, workers are back on the job, if their job still exists, and the stimulus money has been spent. Growth has been moderate with some worrying signs mixed in. Then we were told that once people got the Fauci ouchie, the economy would take off. Fauci ouchie rates in most states exceed 60%, with some states over 70%. So why was economic growth at a measly 2% in the third quarter after growing a whopping 6.7% in the second quarter? The answer lies in consumer spending numbers. So this is from the Wall Street Journal. The Commerce Department's third quarter GDP estimate released Thursday said consumer spending rose at an annual rate of 1.6% in the third quarter, a sharp slowdown from a 12% increase in the prior quarter. That reflected weakness in spending on long-lasting goods whose availability was limited by supply issues. Supply chain disruptions, such as backups at U.S. ports and overseas manufacturing disruptions, contributed to a sharp increase in inflation and pose a risk to the economic outlook. Despite supply side challenges, many analysts expect the economy to regain momentum in the final months of the year as long as the virus cases continue to fall. So the mantra going forward will be supply chain disruptions as the major cause of the slowing economy. No doubt, manufactured goods from overseas are having a hard time getting unloaded and shipped to their endpoint destination. But that doesn't explain the domestic bottlenecks. And that's not a supply chain problem, it's a labor problem. The labor force decreased in September, and some economists say labor force participation, or the share of Americans working or seeking a job, will never return to pre pandemic levels. With fewer employees in the workforce, businesses are increasingly relying on automation and increased worker productivity to meet demand. One Massachusetts cabinet company is absolutely swamped with orders but can't fill them because of a lack of qualified workers. Two workers quit because of the Fauci ouchie mandate, and the owner can't fill the 2 to 4 open carpenter positions. Orders that usually take 5 to 6 weeks are taking 18 weeks or longer. President of the company, Greg Antonitti, oh no, Antonioli told the Wall Street Journal, I'm really somewhat paralyzed by the amount of work coming in. I should be thrilled that the phone's ringing off the hook, and I'm almost at the point of like, oh my God, what are we going to do? There's another worker paralyzed by the amount of work coming in, but he's the guy in charge of this runaway freight train, the President of the United States. $6 trillion in stimulus funds have only created the conditions for another economic downturn. So, two series. From the Conference Board on Business Conditions, Employment and Income 6 months hence, and from the University of Michigan on the financial situation in a year and business conditions a year and 5 years hence, tell the same story. Sentiment peaked in spring or early summer, and it has been failing precipitously since. This is true for the U.S. as a whole and for the 8 largest states for which the Conference Board collect data. Why does this matter? Well, the rate of decline in these sentiment uh, indi- indices, is that how you say it? Is of the same magnitude we saw back in 2007 before the Great Recession. We call it the 10-point rule. When I don't know if you say, if it's indices, I think is how you say it, drop by at least 10 points, this is an early warning signal for recession. We test this proposition for the U.S. over the period 1978 to September 2021 and show that consumer expectations about future economic trends are highly predictive of economic downturns 6 to 18 months ahead, thus providing an early warning system for the economy. 6 to 18 months ahead would put us smack dab in the middle of the 2022 midterms. Should we really wonder what would happen to Democrats if, in addition to double digit inflation, the economy shows double digit unemployment? Joe Biden may already have led the Democratic Party to rack and ruin. Pray he hasn't led the rest of us over the cliff, too. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, yeah, 4.4 million people quit their jobs in September. Just people keep quitting. And it's a lot because of the mandates and things like that as well. So, it's just, it's never going to get better while these people are in charge. I can promise you that. Okay, the last thing I wanted to look at, um, I always love to read opinion pieces from the Daily Wire. We're going to read one from Ben Shapiro today. Reality remains undefeated. Last week, a 39-year-old black man in Waukesha, Wisconsin, plowed a maroon Ford Escape into a Christmas parade of children and older women. 6 people were killed and another 48 were injured. The motive of the suspect is unknown. If the media have it their way, it will remain that way. The media apparently only care about why suspects commit violent acts when motives can be credited to their political enemies. There's one thing we do know. The suspect should not have been on the street. He had a rap sheet longer than the first 5 books of the Bible. His latest alleged crime took place on November 5th when he was charged with resisting an officer, bail jumping, recklessly endangering safety, disorderly conduct, and battery. First, he allegedly slammed the mother of his child with his fist and then he ran her over. Wait for it, in a maroon Ford Escape. He was released on Friday on $1,000 bail. 2 days later, he ran his vehicle over innocent victims. The Milwaukee County District Attorney's Office has now opened an investigation into the low bail, but we already know just why the bail process allowed the suspect back out onto the street. Equity demanded it. In May 2015, Jeffrey Toobin wrote in the New Yorker about the Milwaukee experiment. The piece was a long, sycophantic love letter to John Chisholm, the district attorney of Milwaukee County, who had embraced criminal justice policies geared toward rectifying, quote, the racial imbalance in American prisons, end quote. According to one of Chisholm's admirers, quote, Chisholm stuck his neck out there and started saying that prosecutors should also be judged by their success in reducing mass incarceration and achieving racial equality, end quote. Not reducing crime, reducing the number of people in jail, and more particularly, the number of black Americans in jail. Chisholm himself admitted the cost of his policies in 2007. Is there going to be an individual I divert or I put into a treatment program who's going to go out and kill somebody? You bet. Guaranteed. It's guaranteed to happen. Chisholm, of course, was right. San Francisco proved the same point this week when large, roving gangs began looting high-end stores. On Friday night, San Francisco's Union Square witnessed a massive group of looters smashing and grabbing a Louis Vuitton store. Meanwhile, thieves congregated to steal products in Walnut Creek, Pleasanton, Hayward, and San Jose. None of this ought to be a surprise. San Francisco District Attorney, is it Chesa Boudin? I don't know, announced that he would end mass incarceration and cash bail. He stopped prosecuting shoplifting cases. In 2020, just 44% of shoplifting cases were prosecuted. The results? Stores are closing down in San Francisco thanks to the automatic surcharge of people stealing their product from the shelves. Reality with regard to criminality isn't all that complicated. When you free criminals unjustifiably in a misguided attempt to achieve group equity, innocents suffer. When you take cops off the street, freeing criminals to work their will, innocents suffer. When you refuse to prosecute crime, criminals spot an opportunity. Voters can either continue to deny reality and pay the price, or they can wake up to the simple fact that reality always wins. Until they do the latter, the criminals and the politicians who enable them will be the only winners. And I would hope that what happened in Waukesha would actually wake people up, and also seeing all these flash mobs of looters around LA, that you would see that and go, I don't want that happening here. So we got to stop it. And in order for it not to spread, you stop it where it's at. You don't just say, well, that's not here. We're just not going to let it happen here, because that never works, because it inevitably can spread. So you have to go and stop it where it's at. You can't just let it just say, I'm forget about those states. Then, we can't do anything. But we should at least try. That way it can't continue to hurt innocent people, even in places that we're not at. Don't they deserve to have people fighting for them too? Because clearly they don't. Nobody's fighting for the innocent people in these states, these cities, because they don't care. It's a political move for them to continue to stay in power and make money. And they're never going to change until we hold them accountable. That is our job. I'm going to leave this episode here. I'm getting a headache, and my head feels like it's like a balloon. I need to go take some medicine. I didn't want to take it before I recorded because I didn't want to get loopy or tired. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the episode today. I will be working on the 30-minute episode to give you all the information that I got from Glenn Beck, and I think it's very eye-opening and enlightening, and it should, if you haven't watched it yet, which I did share it on my social media, but if you haven't watched it, when you do, it should anger you. It should anger every American to find out how much we've been lied to. You may think that, yeah, of course we've been lied to, and it's more than just a little, it's a lot, it's a whole lot, and it should anger everybody. So I will be working on that, and I will get that out sometime this week. Maybe Wednesday or Thursday, I'm not sure. So I hope that you will be looking for that episode. Anyway, please subscribe to the podcast. You can go to Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple. You can subscribe there, leave me a review, and then check out my YouTube channel. Go watch my videos, like and share them, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell so you know every time I upload a new episode, and check out my link tree in the description box so you can get to all of my social media accounts. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. God bless.